Hi friends, Tiffany here. Welcome to my quilting life. Okay, so today's video is a sew-along video, but not from my channel. This is from teaquilts. Now, she did not write this pattern. This is a purchased pattern that we are doing a sew-along with here at teaquilts on YouTube. And you can find her here at teaquilts.com. This is a pattern called 4-Star Generals Revisited. This is the pattern. And my shakes stop you from seeing. So for the next 14 months, I will be showing you guys how to put the blocks together. It is not my pattern, so I cannot give you no measurements, but I will be showing you how to assemble each month's block. So from now until I get to the border blocks and then assemble the quilt, I will make a video for each section. A lot of people are making a couple border blocks each time. They make their actual big blocks part and then they'll make their border parts. I am going to just do it month to month by video instead of making them in advance, because I'm using my scraps to make from the main part of the project to make the borders. So the pieced border, which would be this right here. So mine will be a little bit different than everyone else's, but if you follow teaquilts here on YouTube, you will find that there's a group also for this specific pattern. The group is only for the people that have purchased the pattern, but I'm sure if you find this pattern and start sewing along, you'll have my channel here also to assemble the blocks and the whole entire quilt when it comes time to doing that. So it will be month to month. Other than that, that's all I got to say. So let's get started with a block. Okay, my friends. So this is the pattern we are doing, 4-Star Generals Revisited by Kindred Spirits Yellow Creek Quilt Designs. This is a sew along I am doing with teaquilts, and I, on the table now, have my blocks for month 1 cut. I cannot give you the measurements. I can only show you how to put this quilt together. So we are going to start with block 1, and I'm going to try to get just this into the picture right there. Right here, and my B's mean background because I'm using black, so B stands for black. So there is the picture. I am going to show you how to put the block together. I am making 4 of the same blocks. I will hold the pattern up one more time so that you can see. They're going to be here. All of my background fabric will be the same for me. So not only am I going to have black like this pattern shows, in my blocks will be black, so everything will stand out from what I am doing. And you will see when we get to the end and I finally assemble this whole entire quilt. So for now, let's put together 1 block for this pattern. So, and then obviously you'll stay with me while I sew all 4 of them and then put them together. So we're going to start with just 1. I'm going to move all these pieces up and out of the way. I don't need those at the very moment. We are going to start with all of my pieces. Now, I'm going to tell you what my pieces are. Right here, I have what would be my light fabric, and those are my rectangles. And then this is also my light fabric. This is the second cut. Then I have my main fabric, which will be this one. I have 8 pieces of that. And then I have 2 accents, and I have 2 each of those. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start with my pieces right here, my rectangles, and my main fabric. And we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and we're going to start assembling these 2 together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rectangles, and I use seam tape, so this makes this process easy for me. But what you would normally do is you would take and take a pen or a pencil, and this is a friction pen, and mark a line from corner to corner using a ruler like so, and you would mark your line from corner to corner. I am not going to do that. You could also fold the block piece in half like this and press it with an iron to get a sew line. Again, I'm just using my seam tape, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to place one block right here on the corner, and I'm going to do that on all 4 of my pieces, just like this. One block on all 4 pieces, like this. And I'm going to chain piece these through. Now I'm also putting together 3 other blocks after this, so a total of 4 blocks, and all that I will probably do after I show you how to make just one, and we'll review every single block from there on out. Now if I could find my foot pedal, we can start some sewing. So I'm just going to sew from corner to corner, just like that. So I'm going to lay it right here with my background facing up, and the block piece I'm going to be sewing from the center to the corner. So I'm going to again slide this under, sew it from corner to corner. I'm going to add the next piece, again, corner to corner, and my last and final piece for this block itself, right here, corner to corner. Now I'm going to break thread, and I'm going to go ahead and snip these apart, and we're going to take these over and trim away. All right, so here are my 4 pieces. Before I press them, I'm going to go ahead and line my ruler up. Here's my seam, and you can see it right here. I'm going to line this up with my seam, just like this, 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to go ahead and make a cut just like that. So I have now cut away 1/4 of an inch seam allowance away from my block piece. So again, I'm going to do that on all 4 of these, just like this. Keep going. And it doesn't have to be perfect as long as you have a 1/4 inch about seam. I just, I want it to be a little accurate, so I do it like that. So now let's take this over to the iron. Okay, so here is our little tiny blocks. They're not really that tiny, but they're small. We're going to take one at a time. And I'm just going to use my finger to kind of just open this up and push it back, just like that, so that I have a nice squared end right there. And I'm going to take my iron, and I'm going to use it to heat that up so that it stays black. So now we have a piece that looks like this. So I'm going to go ahead and just press these back, just like this. I use my finger first, for these little tiny ones, and then I'll just put the tip of the iron on it. And that way they stay nice and rectangle. So again, I'm going to do another one. And every once in a while, there'll be one that's probably not perfectly straight at the top, but that just happens. And we can stop that if we sew a little bit. So here's the stitch right here. If I was to sew this way of the stitch from that corner a little bit right here, like 1 or 2 stitches over, it would prevent it from having anything not straight. But I don't sew like that. I mean, sometimes I do, but not always when I'm making these little units like this. So all 4 of these, let's take these back to the sewing machine now. Okay, so once back at the sewing machine, we're going to take these units, and you should have 4 squares left. We're going to add those squares now onto the opposite side. And again, you can draw your line, or you can just do it like me and not draw the line. So we're going to sew from this corner to the center now. So I'm going to go ahead and sew from this corner towards the center, just like that. So I'm going to grab another one, and I'm going to And you could very well sew from this corner down to this corner if you wanted. It really doesn't matter. So I'll slide this in so you can see. So I'm going to sew from that corner down, as long as you're putting one of these on the opposite side. Essentially, all we're doing is creating flying geese. So it doesn't matter as long as it goes on in the correct direction, because you don't want to, say, sew it on and go this direction with it like this. You don't want to sew it on from corner to corner that way. You definitely want to make sure that you're sewing it on from corner to corner. Oops, from corner to middle this direction. So I'm going to lay this on here, if I can get it nice and flat again, because I was folding it in half to show you. And again, just sliding it under and sewing from the corner to the corner. So I'm going to go ahead and break thread. I'm going to go ahead and separate all of these, and then we're going to take them over and we're going to trim away. So here we are. Again, you can see my seam going corner to corner. We're going to go ahead and same thing as before. I'm just going to line my ruler up, and I'm going to cut away with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just like this. And 2 more. So I'm just leaving myself a 1/4 inch of a seam on all of my pieces. Oops. Got threads just coming in everywhere. Just like that. And now we're going to take these over and press them. So here we are at the iron, and I'm going to go ahead and press one back, just like that. And I have myself a little flying geese unit. So the last one I forgot to use my finger. I usually use my fingers first on, again, on these smaller units. So there we have number 2. I'm going to grab another. Just going to push it back with my finger. I use my nail. You can use a wood tool if you would like. And then my last and final one, just like this. Technically, it's not my last and final because I have 3 more blocks to make, but now let's go over to the cutting table and lay this out. Now, I don't want to hold the chart up because I definitely don't want the measurements to be shown. So my layout will be your chart. So I'm going to take my 4 background colors, which are the blacks, just like this. Oops, let's get this in the camera view, huh? Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take these units that we just made right here, and I'm going to place them in like this with my color facing in. Now, if you're following the pattern and using a light background, then and your main fabric and your accents, then follow it that way. But I am using black again for everything. So then we put that together, and then we have our accent colors. So we should have 4 accent pieces. Mine are going to go right here, and we got to sew these together just like this. So I'm going to sew these 2 together and these 2 together. So let's go over to the sewing machine. So here are my accent pieces with a 1/4 inch seam, and I'm going to lay my, because I cannot sew straight, and you guys know this from watching my videos. I'm going to put my seam guide on here. Even with this tape, I still can't do it right. I'm going to take the 2 opposite ones. I know they're in the same colorway, but it's just the way I'm putting my quilts together. I'm going to put these right sides together. They're opposite of each other. I'm going to lay them down just like this. I'm going to slide 2 through. Then I'm going to lay the opposite colors and slide those through like this. And then I'm going to break the thread and come right here and go like this. 1, my darker color, which is the darker of the 2 yellows. I'm going to finger press that back to the left, and then the darker color on this one, I'm going to finger press to the right. Then all I need to do is put these right sides together. My finger press was enough to get these flat, almost. I'm just going to nest these two seams up, and I'm going to sew them together down this side. So I'm going to line everything back up, just like this, and I'm going to run it through. I'm going to hold that center, just like that. And now I'm going to just finger press this back for now, or you can use your wooden tool that you can find on teaquilts.com. And then I'm going to take this over to the iron and make it flat for a second, and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I'm done with that. It's put together. It is nice and flat. My corners match perfectly. And even if they didn't, it doesn't, you just got to try your best to get them that way. If it's not 100% perfect, don't beat yourself up. So now we're going to grab the rest of my block, and I'm going to put it together right up here so that I can see it. So again, the same way I had it laying out, I'm just going to lay it out right here next to me, just like this. So here's what my block is going to look like, just like that. So let's start sewing this together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two, these, and those, and I'm going to run those through the machine. So I'm going to lay this one as it was. I'm not going to turn anything on this side of the bed of my machine. I'm going to put these two in first, right sides together. I'm going to nicely keep this all squared up. I'm going to slide those through with a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to leave them there. I'm going to grab this guy right here, put these two right sides together. They should line right up and be exactly the same size if you used a 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to make sure that my seam right here that's pressed to one side stays down. And then I'm going to grab this bottom piece, again, right sides together. It is in the correct direction. And I'm going to slide this guy through, just like that. So I'm going to bring this back to me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this farthest one to the left, just like that. And again, you can use your wooden tool if you need to for these. And then this centerpiece, I'm going to press to the right. So I'm just going to use my wood tool. And as you can see, my star was put together right here. So my point of my background fabric is still visible, which is what you are looking for a nice, good block. And I'm just going to use my tool to make sure everything stays nice and flat. And then this bottom one, again, I'm going to press it towards my background fabric, just like this. So I'm just going to use my fingers and my tool to get it right. So now those three are together. They are not getting out of order. I'm going to reach into the bed of my machine over here, and I'm going to grab the first top piece, which is the black, and I'm going to lay this on here nice and square, and I'm going to slide that through. Then I'm going to grab this next one, and I'm going to put this right sides together, and I am going to sew this one through. And I'm also going to be mindful for the joint of these two pieces coming together. My 1/4 inch seam should land right before those two stitches touch. So I'm going to slide this one through. If my 1/4 inch seam is accurate, it should land right before where it touches. And it did. So you can see I made myself a little TP right here. And then I'm going to slide this black piece. It is black, duh. I'm going to slide the last piece under, just like this. And I'm going to do that same procedure. This bottom one is going towards my left, so it's going out towards my background piece. Then this one, I'm going to flip under so that way it goes towards my left hand, like this. So that was to the right, this is to the left. I probably said left on the other one, but you guys know I have issues with my right and left. And then we're going to take this top one and we're going to press that out towards the right, just like that. So it's nice and flat as best as I can get it. You can see that I still have my points at the tips of my star. So now all I need to do, and I don't need to press it at this point. It's good. Everything's flat. My wood tool worked. I'm going to take the bottom piece closest to me and I'm going to put that right sides together, just like that. I'm going to line my end up right here. I'm going to nest this first seam and that second seam, and I'm also going to be aware of where this V comes together right here that I'm stitching near. So I'm going to line this up. I'm going to slide it through. I'm going to make sure my seam stays down. I'm aiming for right before that V. I'm also going to line up this end and nest the seam all at the same time. So I'm aiming right before that V and stitching the rest of the way down. And now I'm going to go ahead and pick the whole thing up and press it in. So again, you can use your wood tool if you want, like this. So I pressed it to right here. You can see I pressed it inward so that it lays flatter, because there is a bunch of seams, these two seams and these two seams coming together. So I want it to come in so that they go towards the lesser of the seam side. So I'm going to take this now, attach this right there. Nothing's moved or twisted or anything. I'm going to hold that first seam down and slide that matched up corner under. I'm going to come down here and lift this up, making sure this bottom touches correctly and this seam is nest. And I'm going to hold that with my fingers, and I'm going to aim again to make sure that I do not cross that X. I don't want to be in front of the X. I want to be behind the X. So as you can see, I am. So now again, I'm going to take it and flip that seam towards the center of the block. And I'm going to use my little wooden tool before I go to the iron, just like this, and push it back. And now when I take it to the iron, I can make it lay super flat. All of my seams are laying wonderfully. And yeah, so we just need to make 3 more of these, and then I'll show you what to do next. So let's press this and I will put the other 3 in fast forward for you. Okay, so there should be no real reason why your block shouldn't finish as the size it says in the pattern. So we're going to, well, I should say unfinished because this is the unfinished size. So here are my 4 blocks, just like this. And we are now going to turn these into one big block with some sashing going both directions. So I'm going to organize them, I think, like this. Like that. I think that's how I want them with all of my... Actually, let's make it where the stars come in to the center, like that. There we go. So you can see how that yellow is coming in like that, the darker of the 2 yellows. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to cut my sashing strip into the pieces that I need, and I'll be right back. So I'm going to start with sewing the sashing in between the blocks like this. So here's my sashing pieces. I'm going to hook the sashing to this one and then hook that to that. Hook the sashing to this and then hook that to that. So let's go to the machine and attach the sashing for the pieces first. Okay, so I'm going to move this one to the side. I'm not going to move anything. I'm just going to pick them up from where they were. I'm going to attach my first sashing piece in here like this. And then make sure that it fits. It's the accurate size for this block. 1/4 inch seam. And then I'm going to break that. Normally I wouldn't, but I'm going to for this. And then I'm going to finger press for now. I'm going to finger press it away towards my sashing. And then I'm going to grab this piece now and put this on with a 1/4 inch seam as well. So I'm just going to line them up, and with the black it's kind of hard to see where they're exactly lining up, but we're going to make it work. So we're lining it up. Quarter inch seam, and now I'm going to finger press that towards the middle. It wants to go towards it anyway because it wants to be away from these points, and I did lose 1 point here, but that's okay. So I'm going to set that aside now, and I'm going to grab the other 3 pieces that I need. So we're going to attach this sashing piece right here, line it up, oops, just like that. And I'm using white thread for this whole project, but I would say if you're using black, to use black thread, but I kind of didn't think about it until the very last minute, and I was like, maybe I'm using the wrong color thread. But that's okay. It's just the reason why I would use black with a black quilt is because, like, if the seam's stretched at all, you can see that white thread through. But if you have an issue with that, I would just say color it in with a fabric marker. You know, if you're seeing too much of your white thread through the seams, just use a fabric marker and color it in. All right, so I'm attaching the second one now to that piece of sashing. Quarter inch seam. And now I'm going to go take this over and press it, and I'll be right back. So this is what I have now. So now I need a piece to go into the center. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that piece, and then I'm going to show you how I make them line up without having a seam to nest these 2 sides. And it's going to be really hard for you to tell anyway, my whole entire project, because I'm using black fabric as my background. So let me cut that piece and I'll be right back. Okay, so what we're going to do is this piece is going to go right sides together with this one. And then I'm going to sew down there. And then when I get to adding this, I'm going to show you how I make this line up equal so that nothing is messed up. Now you can go from corner to corner. It's exactly the same size. But some people have issues with lining a straight line here with the straight line here. So I'm going to show you what I do. So I'm going to start with attaching this right sides together, and I'm going to sew it upside down this way so that I can watch for my cross points right here And just make sure that I'm not losing all of my points throughout this whole block. So I'm going to line this up just like that. I'm going to start sewing and making sure it's staying lined up on the bottom. I'm aiming at my cross points, although I can't see these ones, but I'm going to assume, because I turned all my blocks different directions, so my backs are going to lay differently. So there we are, right through that. Okay, so I'm going to go press this back real quick, and you can see that I almost lost one star. They're like right there on the edge, but I'm not going to fret. It's just a tiny, 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 tiny smidge, so you can see. I'm going to take this and press it real quick, and I'm going to grab the other piece and show you how I line them up. So I backed you up a little bit for this. What we're going to do is we're going to take this bottom piece. Here's the one with the sashing. As you can see, it's a lot longer. I'm going to stick this one right sides together, just like this. First off, I'm going to make sure that my ends are even. Then I'm going to make sure that this whole seam is even. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel this back. Now you can pin this. I am not a pinner. Peel it back all the way to right before the sashing starts. If those two seams, so we're going to zoom in and see if it's even noticeable. There we go, right there. Can you see that? If these two seams right here are equal, so if I folded this back more, you're going to see, hold on, let me fold it back just a little bit more. You can see that the sashing is there. There's the other piece to it. I know with my black fabric choice, it makes it a little hard, but I'm going to make sure that those are lined up so that when I have this folded over and I start sewing along this bottom section right here, I'm going to fold it out one more time, that those are perfectly in line. So let's take this over to the machine and I'm going to stitch it. If you want, you can throw a pin in it right here and right here so you know that that's where you want it to stay. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sew without a pin. I have not let go of my block this whole time. I'm leaving it just like this, even after I turned it. So I'm going to look one more time. It looks perfect to me. I'm holding it with my fingers. My ends are lined up. And now I'm just going to stitch on down. I'm going to try not to lose my points as I sew, but they get close, you know. I'm going to move my hand and adjust it to the other side. And if you want to take a look one more time, and mine have not shifted, I'm just going to use my fingers as the pins. Now I'm going to line this end up right here, and everything else should be where it needs to be. So I'm just going to back that up real quick. I don't like when that happens. So I got to push that seam back down. There we go. It's not like I'm going to press the seam to this side. I'm actually going to press it in towards the center like this. Just like that. And now I have both my blocks sewn together. And if I go press this, I'll show you the seam in just a second. So here is my one large finished block. You can see that these two line up, and I didn't use pins to get there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in. Oops, didn't mean to so that you can see, and so you can also see, this is why I usually use black thread, because those whites stick through, but that can get hidden with the stitch in the ditch. You can see that there's also dust, which happens with black fabric as well. But if you didn't notice, these are nice and straight, and you can see that this whole piece looks like one unit, and there's no cornerstone to have to nest these up. So it's nice and straight. So there we have it. There is my first block, because I'm so behind, on my 4-star General Revised. 4-star Generals Revised, sorry for that. Quilt along with T from Teaquilts. Yeah, so here's my first block. I'm finally getting things done. And that's all I have to share with you guys. I really want to thank you for watching. And if you are not part of the sew along, but you are doing this pattern on the side, don't forget that you could also see if T has any left, again, at teaquilts.com. As well as if you're buying it, I'm not going to give away any measurements. Like I said, I just am showing you how to put this together, but these videos will always be here now so that you can see how this is done. So I want to thank you. Bye-bye, and see you next time.